am Sandy Powell, and welcome to the Roundtable. I am excited today with my guest, special guest here, to talk about a year in review, talking about the last 12 months and more. Welcome here today to the Roundtable, my very good new friend, Bishop Michael Grant.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
Yeah, I tell you, a year ago, almost, I said that I would have this opportunity. Wow. And then the door opened up.
Absolutely.
And so I'm super excited to be here with you. I'm super excited to get you to tell your story.
Wow.
And to explain and give answer to what it is that you want us to know, the viewers and the Christian community and our community as a whole. So again, thank you for accepting the invitation.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Glad to be a part of what you're doing in our community.
Yes. Keep watching too, by the way.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And spread the word.
Spread the word. Before you leave, I'm gonna get you to put some information in your phone and stuff like that.
Sounds good.
This year, this 2018 January, you took the helm of Faith Worship Center, and you have had to hit the ground running.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
You had to hit the ground running. There was no time to think. There was no time to long paused moments. You had to grab it by the wheel, and you had to take off and keep the ship and the boat going.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, in your words, what that has been like to have to hit the ground running without pause.
Yeah, it's been a journey. Mm-hmm. It's been an eventful journey, but it's been a very fulfilling journey. I can say that as well. Mm-hmm. January was it was actually a planned move that I took over the pastorate of Faith Worship Center.
Right.
And it was something that my mother, the late Dr. Ann Hartman, and I had talked about for some months and was, considering, and she was prayerful, I was prayerful to hear what was on God's heart,
Right.
specifically for that work.
Right.
And I accepted. And as you mentioned, come January, hit the ground running, and but what we did not anticipate what was to take place soon thereafter.
Right.
And
right.
all that came with taking on that vision, that ministry, and all of the other aspects of what she held and what she oversaw. So
exactly.
Very much so.
Well, to you all, I guess behind the scenes, it wasn't a kind of quick turn thing, but to the rest of us, it may have seemed and appeared that way. And I know that even for you to have planned it to take the ministry and go in the direction that you all have gone, like you said, soon thereafter, the death of your mother, which was the leader of Faith Worship Center, was probably in a 2-3 month period when it happened. Yes. And so that kind of put you an added boulder on top of what you were already facing, which is leading and guiding, directing people, their lives as the senior pastor.
Right.
Can you speak to that boulder of?
Yeah, it's easy when you have a security blanket as prolific as an Ann Hartman, to ask questions, to bounce ideas off of, which was the process prior to taking on the pastoral role.
Exactly.
But once in March she passed, there was then my mentor, my friend, my leader, my set gift transition in her passing. So I lost a lot relationally as a leader who was under great leadership.
Right.
And so to your point, the weight of the fullness of the expectation it ended up being solely on my shoulders. And so there was a weight.
And having that, because it's so much easier to move something when you got two sets of hands on it to move that thing, but to have now it hoisted into your arms, into your lap, there had to be a moment of just where do we go from here?
Yeah. Yeah.
You had those moments.
Yeah, definitely. Inward, for
Inward,
sure.
right.
We had planned out the year in its entirety,
Okay.
2018,
Okay.
prior to entering into it, even her as the founder and me as pastor. So we collaborated and came up with a plan that we thought would be, would please God and would take our ministry to a good place.
Right.
And so inwardly it was, okay, wow, I don't have anybody to share this with, to co-labor with this endeavor with. But God quickly reassured me and getting me to a place of saying,
Right.
follow the plan.
Right.
Follow the plan. You already
Right.
know, you already talked about it. This was something that was planned prior to
Right.
this event. And God knew,
Right.
apparently,
Exactly.
And so sticking to the plan was
Right.
our best course of action.
And not feeling like you had to go a different direction based on something else rising up or whatever. Right. You just kept what you heard from your leadership. Right. To stay the course. This is the plan. This is what was written out and shared back and forth. I do understand the having someone that you can bounce ideas off of, and someone that you can, because even though you have a plan, it's not always detailed.
No, not at all. Right, right.
And
Very
so
true.
to have the bulk of the main meat of the plan, but not necessarily have side dishes with to go with it.
Right.
Who did you look to for that type of mentorship, or did you have someone that you could look to for that type of mentorship?
That's a great question. I've often, throughout all of my life, had to seek out mentorship indirectly.
Right.
I don't know if it's an introvert type of personality, if you want to call it that, but or just very careful as to who I let into my space.
Right.
But I had very few voices that I allowed into my ears, and so our covenant connection, as you call it, was years ago with Dr. Rod Parsley out of Columbus, Ohio. And
Very
immediately after my mother's transition, I sensed God leading me to rekindle that covenant connection, to get guidance from a guy who has decades of experience.
Exactly.
Who has not only he, but his staff available to all of their covenant pastors, part of City Harvest Network. And so reaching out to that entity with Dr. Parsley. But then there was a gentleman who was my very first pastor when I was a little boy born in Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
Who has consistently been a part of my life, by the name of Bishop Richard Sampson.
Amen.
And
Amen.
so he's been a sounding board throughout the process as well. Very appreciative of him. No bias in his hearing, no bias in his giving
Isn't that
insight.
awesome?
He has been a jewel to my life for sure.
I know that you, like you said, you had a plan and everything. And I know that when you have, like Bishop, she was the pastor, she's the founder of Faith Worship Center. And you have a body of believers who are following and he hear her voice. How was that turning of that ship to now get the membership to now turn and hear your voice? Was that a hard turn, or was that something that you all planned and it turned very easily, or how was that process?
Yeah, it was smoother than one would think.
Oh, okay.
Because for the last now 5 years prior to my taking on senior pastor role at Faith Worship Center, I had been filling in almost like off and on interim pastor.
Okay.
My mother, she experienced a health challenge that surfaced in 2012, 2013.
Right.
At that point in time, I began to come in and fill in for her every other Sunday,
Right.
and teach all Tuesdays, all Bible studies.
Okay.
And so the body had gone through the process of getting acclimated with me 2013 through 2017.
Wow.
And so they gotten familiar with me. And so when her health challenge got more serious than anticipated in 2018, there was no one else that body would have turned to, would have accepted than a son of the house,
Right.
a son of their leader.
That's
and
how it's supposed to
someone-
be,
Yes,
too.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And someone who they trusted, someone who had been proven, if I can use that term, within the house. And so it was, if it would have been anyone else, it would have been a horrible situation.
Right.
But thankfully, my mother had been preaching succession for the last 5 to 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, unknowing
anybody.
right, that what would take place. Wow. She'd been teaching to all of her sons in ministry. Get you somebody to back you up, because you never know, what'll take place. You never know, and even if you live a long life, you don't want to be bogged down in the fullness of your life with the work of ministry.
Right.
You want to prepare someone. So she prepared me.
And that's wisdom, because if not, the work dies with the person.
Right.
And so she had already, even not necessarily with the illness or anything, but just mindset that this needs to happen, that sonship needs to be raised up to now carry the work that she had started. And you said that the membership was fine. How about your leadership? Were their voices, was there hearing? Because we love our pastors.
Yeah.
How that is.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you had your moment of, I really want my leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you sense any of that with your leadership, or were they as well just all bind together and prepared to do this next stage?
As a whole, the vast majority bound together and was ready to move forward. I think we all really got a holy indignation of anger against what took place.
Yeah.
And they said, you know what, we're gonna overcome this. We're gonna rally together, and we're gonna accomplish what God had for us. Now, that not without its challenges, not without a handful here and there saying, sharing their piece, rightly so, even in respectful manners.
Right.
But for the majority, it was without question, we're gonna rally together. We're gonna do what our founder would have expected us to do in an event like this. So I've been blessed. I've been fortunate, as coming into my first year of pastoring a house as prevalent as Faith Worship Center. 25 years.
Right.
Was
that how long the ministry?
25 years last year.
Oh,
yes,
my.
Built from ground level.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I came in the city in '91, and I remember early on hearing of your mother when she first started ministry. And 25, that has aged me. Thank you, Bishop.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I'm sorry.
They can just put some years on me, just not felt the gray hair. Anyway, I know that it takes good leadership, and your mother was a great leader, and she was a great teacher.
Absolutely. Oh, she was my favorite preacher.
I can imagine.
Man, she's my favorite preacher.
I can imagine, because she know how to break that word down. She was just,
and had charisma. Had a
with a smile on her face, eating you up.
And was a pretty lady too.
Yes, she was pretty.
I can't be too mad.
You can't even get mad. You just have to sit there and say, I'm gonna get myself together.
That's right. That's right. That was her. Yes, ma'am.
Even with that, you said there was just a few in every crowd, and it's just not at Faith Worship Center.
Right.
Ministries, have these type of turns and troubles and little pockets of this and that. As the senior pastor, have you had the pleasure of touching these situations and helping it to heal? Have you had the pleasure of that, and what is your success rate on that?
Absolutely. I have, as I mentioned, 2018 was a very eventful year, and it was not only fun events, it was the challenges as well. And I definitely had to endure instances where people had other visions that they desired to fulfill, where people did not fully agree with the direction that I saw, that I sensed from God, our ministry going in. And you ask about success rate. I can honestly say within myself that I did right by each of those situations. Whether the person felt heard, whether the person felt as if they got across what they wanted to get across, or whether they got accomplished what they wanted to get accomplished, they'd have to answer that.
Exactly.
But I can honestly say I can sleep well at night.
That's right.
By handling God's people well, giving people an opportunity to share what their grievance may have been, and handle it accordingly. We have a saying at Faith Worship Center. One of our pillars of our subculture is be gracious in conflict. Anytime there's conflict that arises, that's not your opportunity to tell somebody off. That's not your opportunity, to put somebody in their place. We all have things that we disagree with. We can agree to agree or agree to disagree or whatever it is. However, there's a mandate on our lives as believers to do it with grace.
That's right.
And that's our approach.
Can we adopt some of that?
You can have it.
I'm going to put it on the screen for folks so we all can maybe practice it, because honestly, this is biblical.
Yeah, I was about to say it's straight from the
Scripture.
Bible. I don't take that. I don't take ownership of that. That comes straight from God's word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that the legacy was laid out. And even though there was a legacy laid out, you have to know, like you said, when God gave you some directions, they may not have been the way that Ann Hartman would have done it. And did you find it difficult to run those other paths? Did you find it difficult to maybe not do it the way Ann Hartman would have done it? Was that difficult for you?
I wouldn't use the term difficult. I would say I respect the process of it, though. And by that I mean, I'm shepherding a flock that was shepherded by her. And so I didn't want to come in like the young tyrant saying, this is what we're going to do, and like it or not.
Flipping tables.
Yeah, that just would not have been healthy for that body. But one thing for sure I know is I am a son of Ann Hartman, both biologically and spiritually.
That's right.
And so I trust that anything that God is showing me, it's directly in alignment with our lineage. It's not just something, a wire hair that I'm feeling to, want to get accomplished. I am a byproduct of her ministry. Right. And so
you were reared by her as a son. Yeah. And then in the spirit she poured into you as that. So you're not going to veer that far from what seems to be what's given to her for ministry. And but there will be some
and she did give me the freedom to be me. And in doing so, I embrace who I am uniquely in its entirety, and I think our house does as well. There are moments that they likely miss, her flow, her style. But one of the first things I told them in taking on the pastoral role was, if you all will let me be free to be me, we're going to go places that God only would desire for us to go.
Amen. Well, since you said that, who is Michael Grant? Who is that? Who's that person? Tell us. Who is he?
I'm a person of passion. I'm a person that values leadership. I'm a person that understands the importance of legacy. If I could sum myself up in those three words. When you see me, you're going to see a person that's passionate about what they're doing. I don't care if I'm playing basketball with my sons,
How many sons do you have?
2 sons. My wife and I have 2 boys, an 11-year-old, going on 11 this month, and a 7-year-old.
Good.
And they keep us good and busy. Good and busy.
See, you don't have to tell nobody. I, grandmother of 6.
Yes, ma'am.
So
yes,
I know,
ma'am.
and all under 9.
Oh.
Help us. Let's
Yes,
just have a
ma'am.
word of
I
prayer.
know, right?
Can we just, okay.
God, Jesus be a fence. Amen.
Build it, Lord. But
Yes, ma'am.
Michael Grant, the father.
Yeah.
Michael Grant, the husband. Michael Grant, the pastor. Any other Michael Grants?
Wow. Of course, I wear many hats, even under the auspices of ministry. I serve as, well, first of all, as a husband, I take pride in being the best husband that I can be.
Amen.
Making sure that my wife, Dana, she smiles every day, and that I can make her life as enjoyable as I possibly can.
Isn't that
Yes,
wonderful?
she has to be my my report card. Not she is the credit card.
She is
holder.
that. She's same thing.
She tries to be, right? But report card. She'd have to give me my grade on that, of course. But I take joy in doing that. I take joy in pouring into our sons. As a father, that's a joy of mine. But even as a pastor, I have the privilege of mentoring
Yeah.
others. I have coached in past times. Truth be told, I think the model of pastor or preacher that I am kind of spun off of my coaching style. Because I'm a
Okay.
motivator. Come on, you can
Come
do it.
on, we can get up.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
That's it. That's it. Yes,
Hang in
ma'am.
there.
That's right. I was actually fortunate enough to started out coaching as a volunteer coach in the community here locally,
Okay.
and was fortunate enough to hold internships at the professional level. I coached with the New York Jets.
Did?
Yeah, for the training camp of 2016, I think it was. Maybe 15, and then the Arizona Cardinals the year thereafter. So I've been exposed to some high-level quality coaching, and so, like I said, I think even throughout that time period where I was pastoring, preaching, I was kind of slipping into doing some coaching as well. So
And
that's
all
a
of that's
passion of
kind
mine.
of playing a role in who you are as a pastor
It
and as a
absolutely is.
leader.
Yes.
God is using every aspect of you
Absolutely.
for His glory.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So coaching, I didn't know that.
Yes.
See, that's this little twinkle on
I
me.
know, right? Well, that kind of stems back to my days as a football player. Football and ministry, sports and ministry, but particularly football and ministry have always been a part of my life. And whether it's coaching Little League or training my two boys, just because I think they correlate very, very well.
Yeah.
You learn things in life through
Right.
sports, through the simplicity of sports.
That's right.
And then your life is enriched through ministry as well. So
Oh, my
I
goodness.
enjoy both
Well,
those.
I have to ask you this question because, I don't know how your family felt or feels, and we only can hear it from you.
Right.
But how do you feel like the community as a whole, church folk, the community as a whole, supported you all in this year? Do you feel the support of the community, of the churches? And if not, because I said this, I'm going to come behind the curtain. And if not, what could we have done better? So if we missed it with you all, we won't miss it again with another. Because we've got to know that, this is not going to just be a faith worship center only. Someone else is going to experience this one day and have to experience this. And just to hear from you, give us our report card. How did we do? And honestly, I know, don't worry about our feelings. We're going to bounce back.
Right. I know that's
We're going to
right.
bounce back.
You know what? I think I can firmly speak on behalf of our family when I say that Columbus, Phoenix City, and the surrounding areas passed with flying colors.
Amen.
And how they supported, prayed for, reached out to, and ministered to our family in the loss of our matriarch.
Yeah, that's right.
She was such a lady who touched so many lives, but every area of community that she reached, every single aspect of them reached out to us in that time of bereavement. And so, I mean, totally overwhelmed with the love shown, the support. I mean, even from city officials. We were fortunate enough to sit down at a table in the planning of her homegoing service with city leaders like our city manager,
Wow.
Mr. Hughley, like
Right.
our mayor at the time, Mayor Tomlinson, chief of police, our sheriff, and to be able to see the passion in their eyes as to how my mother touched their lives and how they were adamant about ensuring that she was celebrated in the right way. And then those are our big namers, but we also had pastors and leaders and church members, business owners who made sure that even to the point that the attire that she wore in her homegoing, the cleaners did it complimentary for us. I mean, it was absolutely overwhelming. So
that's so good
flying
to know.
colors.
I know that the day of the service, I watched. We all watched, and so. But then there's that time afterwards. After all of the cameras are gone and all of the, the people have gone, and now it's just the family.
Right.
How did the community and the church world, how were we there? Did you all get the support that you felt you needed or at the time for the process of grieving? How was that?
That's a good question, and I would say I think our posture as a family, we were very secluded afterwards, and we looked internally for healing. So it would be unfair for me to say, oh, I didn't get as many calls after the process. We didn't get reached out to, because I do believe that had we opened ourselves up, which is just not our way,
Right.
That many would have been there for us. But I definitely believe that I can be honest in saying that we, at that point, we
just turn inwardly
we
to
turned
each other.
inward
And I think that was a question that I was going to ask you, like, because once, you got to get up there, you got to preach. And this is the thing about pastoring, and I know this is the weight I can feel on your shoulders. You got to still do every aspect of pastoring while you are now grieving the loss of not just your leader, but your mother. And I know, I got chills on my body right now, because, fortunately, I still have my mother, 76 years old, thank God.
Amen.
But I know the day that my mother, if the Lord allows me to be here when she goes to, I just can't imagine the weight of that, and still got to hear somebody else's issue, someone else's problem, someone else's loss, and here you got this big hole in your heart. You know what I mean? So, like, what do you do to woosa, to kind of get your head in a place where you can do this and not, instead of them crying on your shoulder, you crying on their shoulder, so to speak. What do you do, Pastor?
Yeah, I have one day a week where I just get away from it all, go to myself and do something that I enjoy doing, whether it be just relaxing, whether it be going to, I enjoy going to the range, outdoors and indoors.
What, is that the shooting range?
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Good.
Shooters gets a little bit of my
Get a little
lunch
bit.
money every week or so.
I'm a shooter's person.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But I find that being able to get away from it all helps me have those moments to, think back, remember, grieve appropriately,
That's the key.
and yet I think what has helped even through the grieving process, to your point, is to remember the good times and remember what she has assigned for us to do, what she left for us to do, and why we're doing it.
Right.
But it is real.
It's real.
To create a loving and caring community for all people and work together for justice and peace in our world. Recognizing that our spiritual journeys are all different, we strive to be respectful and inclusive concerning each individual's relationship with God. We believe that Christianity is a lifestyle, and we're committed to teaching, learning, and living the Word of God. It's more than a song, more than a shout, more than a dance. Whether you're a committed follower of Christ or just curious about God, you are invited to visit with us. Give us a call or check out our website for more information or to see our sermon times.